You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carl Stebbings and Matt Smith.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 112 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me in the kitchen studio, 20 minutes late this week, is my co-host, Matt.
How rude. That's a terrible slur to make on a coach driver, by the way. Coach drivers are never early and they're never late. They arrive precisely when they mean to.
Oh, I know. But we actually got started an hour and a half earlier.
We did,
and
yes.
we managed to be late.
And we still managed to be late.
Yeah.
But there's a very, very good reason for that, and I think you should induce the reason why.
Yeah, well, we have managed to
induce.
Induce. We're going to give birth to something here.
That's splendid. What we're going to do is we're going to give birth to some radio gold. That's what we're going to do.
Yes, we are. So we've in literally the last 5 minutes, we've managed to grab someone as a quick guest host.
I believe the phrase is "that's what she said."
Yes.
Excellent.
So welcome onto the show. Welcome back onto the show, our good friend, the King of Royal Jet, Captain Al.
A very good morning to you, and how are we?
We're all
splendid.
well. Thank you very much. This is a real unexpected, joyous moment. Thank you very much.
Unexpected is the right word. I've just come back from breakfast. I was expecting just to sit down on my settee and
just have a quiet
Plane Talking UK,
right.
veg out.
Yeah.
With his Netflix.
Yeah, with his Netflix.
And now I've had to rearrange the entire hotel room to get a decent Wi-Fi signal. I'm perched on a stool.
Splendid. He looks really comfortable, by the way, everyone.
I've blocked my only exit out in the event of a fire.
Splendid. Good. Right. Excellent. Well, that's great news. It's great news. Yes. So nobody set fire to the hotel.
No.
And I've got some sort of celestial light bulb over my shoulder.
It's beautiful. It makes you look quite angelic. I'm not going to lie.
He looks lovely.
It'll take a lot more than a light bulb.
Indeed.
So how's your week been, Al? Have you been in the skies above?
Yes, I have. I've been working afternoon shifts, so I've been sort of strolling into work in the variable weather that we've had this week.
Cool, yeah.
Around about sort of lunchtime, and then crawling into my pit in the early hours of the morning.
Dear.
Where have I been? I've been to Heracleon in Crete, Las Palmas in the Canary Islands, Fuerteventura in the Canary Islands, and last night I went to Gibraltar.
Oh, wow. Oh, gosh.
Lovely.
Well, that's all right, isn't it? I said this before because we in the group chat we've got on Twitter, and it's like we got Pip, who was in Greece. You were somewhere else more exotic, enjoying a bar, or the mini fridge, I suppose, is the most.
Well, it's a free bar. I mean, it has to be about, doesn't it?
Absolutely. What better way to wind down from a long day? But,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different world, though, isn't it? I mean, to the I suppose that's the trouble with my job, is the fact that you don't get access.
You don't get
I'm lucky if I
minibars.
get a hotel room.
No.
Yeah.
Royal Jets are very good. I mean, my situation is slightly different in that I'm going to be based in Birmingham for the UK summer. My normal base is Manchester, so I get accommodated here in the Hilton for what is basically until the end of October.
Okay, right. Okay, well, there are worse places to be based, I suppose.
What it is Al's preparing himself ready for when we're all together in that very posh hotel that we're staying at Farnborough.
Right. Okay.
Because obviously Al is in the same same hotel as us.
No, that's going to be a messy night, isn't it?
Rather, yes.
Nev is off apparently. Bye, Nev.
Oh, bye, Nev.
Yes. So I suppose back to the task at hand. We should just say lots of people in the chat room. Hello to Jenny, the legend that is Dr. Steph. She's there as well. Myla, Masha, Nev is now going. Thanks again to Neville for filling in last week as I was stranded.
Glenn Towler's in the chat room. Martin Holmes.
Hello, Martin. First time, I think.
First timer, I think, Martin.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you, Martin? Tell us where you are. Graham Haley. And Myla and Ray Davis, Jennifer Parkinson.
Yeah, Lisbona Nelson. Is it Nelson?
Steph, Dr. Steph. Don't forget
Steph,
Dr. Steph. Yeah, it's very early in the morning there where she is.
Absolutely.
Tony S.
Somebody called Pilot Pip.
Yeah, some guy.
Someone
called Pilot Pip. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got a segment from him this week. I'm really excited. We were listening to it earlier, and it is actually one of my fears. What he's talking about. That is where
I did say
where a
no
lot of
homework,
my one of my problems lies. Is that just a FYI, Captain Al, and that is Turbulence. Especially when you see these horrible. There was a horrible video, wasn't there? I think going around where there was horrific turbulence.
Dave Abbey just popped in.
Oh, yes,
hello, Dave.
Absolutely. Oh, and David
Turbulence
Corson.
is what I call the T word. It's probably one of the greatest fears that most people who have a fear of flying have.
I mean, it sort of stems from I had a very, very bad experience when we were flying when I was very, very young, and it really, I've never really got over it. That's where it sort of stems from. But it's and yet I know that the video, I mean, that was flying around this week, that was, those are very, very extreme situations, where masks drop down and headliners crack and all that kind of thing. But it's just sort of frightens the living daylights out of.
Yeah, I can understand that. It has to be put into a little bit of context, because we tend to see the newspaper articles about people being taken to hospital after a severe turbulence incident. And obviously, let's be honest, that's not what you bought your ticket for.
No,
it's not the same as going to a theme park. However, the majority of those people who were taken to hospital would have just been going for checkups.
Right, yeah.
Or what I would relatively describe as minor injuries. Now, you drive a coach.
Yes.
And we know every year, tragically, that there are coach crashes, not necessarily in the UK particularly, but there are obviously.
Yeah.
But across Europe, there are many, many fatal coach crashes.
True.
And obviously, the severe turbulence aspects of flying are there.
Yeah.
We can't get away from that, but they are isolated, and the majority of people who end up going to hospital are just for a little checkup, or maybe a sprained ankle, or a bit of whiplash, that sort of thing, which I'm not playing down, but it has to be put into the sort of bigger context of it, really.
And I, even I acknowledge that flying is still, despite, I mean, it hasn't been a great couple of years for aviation, but it is still nevertheless the safest way to travel.
Oh yeah.
And it's probably far, statistically speaking, it's much safer than what I do for a living. So I guess it's an irrational fear. I acknowledge that, but I suppose it's
absolutely. I mean, I've yet to see a coach with 2 steering wheels and 2 drivers.
No, indeed.
I'd love to see.
Yeah, I would actually. That's a really good idea. I mean, we do often do what I call double man jobs, but we have to change. We have to sort of pull over and change.
Yeah, and I have before now seen the driver change take place on the motorway on a coach. Whilst the coach is still driving. So I'm not entirely convinced that that's an approved method of changing.
No, it is not. Oh, my goodness me. That's, oh my God. Wow. Anyway.
Matt's face. I love that.
Oh, my goodness me. Yes. Well, as I say, we've got a lovely segment from Kip. I'm going to put my teeth in and try again.
Kyle up Kip.
Yeah, Kyle up Kip.
We have got a segment.
Kipper, to be honest.
I will get this particular segue. We've got a segment from Pilot Pip.
It is on Turbulence, which is why we were talking about it.
And we've also been sent in some really, really good feedback from the Mainman Micah.
Yeah.
And that's coming up as well later on in the show.
Indeed. Yes.
So,
I think it's worth mentioning, by the way, I'm very proud of how well you coped in my absence last week, by the way.
I know.
Very, very impressed I was. It's great news. It means I can go away now and survive, which is great.
Matt did tell me that he only had to do about 5 hours of editing.
Very minor.
Show,
it's fine. Absolutely. I've had worse. Anyway, shall we crack on?
The date today, it is the 14th of May. Yesterday was Friday the 13th.
Yes. Very unlucky for some.
But no, it's 14th of May, Saturday. It's just coming up to 10:30 in the morning. And we've got loads of news, all the usual news, and a great special guest with us this morning, as always.
Yeah. Absolutely. No. So, if we're ready, then
we're ready, we're going to start our show as we do each week with a rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So, if you're ready, Captain Al.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
And Matt.
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's go. So kicking off this week's first news story then, this one is on the Telegraph business site. And the headline, Wi-Fi on long-haul flights, BA to spend £30 million to let passengers watch Netflix in the air. So the passengers could be able to Skype, FaceTime and watch Netflix movies from their aircraft seats from next year, following a deal announced by British Airways. The airline is to provide what it claims will be the fastest Wi-Fi internet connections on long-haul international flights, retrofitting next-generation satellite technology on 118 of their aircraft. The deal struck between the airline's parent International Airlines Group and technology firm GoGo will see the new technology begin to be rolled out from next year. The deal could cost BA around £250,000 per aircraft, or a total of more than £30 million. Although the final details are still being worked out, the service is likely to be free to passengers in a basic form, with fees charged for premium services and connections. While some other airlines are already providing Wi-Fi in flight, BA currently... Wi-Fi? BA currently only has Wi-Fi services available on 3 of its jets. Delta Airlines, which owns 49% of Virgin Atlantic, and some other airlines have linked similar deals with GoGo, although they each make different claims about the specifications of their service. Willie Walsh, IAG Chief Executive, said, "We believe this will be the best Wi-Fi on international flights anywhere. This will be exactly as if you're connected to your Wi-Fi in your home. We'll be able to have everyone on board using multiple devices, and we're going to get speeds that are similar to you being at home." That's why we wanted this. There's nothing more frustrating than if you're a passenger and you're told it's there, but you're sitting there waiting for your screen to refresh. It's just becoming more irritating than not, and having some of the early technology, we just felt it wasn't something we could offer our customers and convince them it was going to work constantly.
Wow.
Showcasing the technology on a special jet service put on in San Jose at the launch of BA's new direct flight from London Heathrow to America's 10th largest city, demonstrations of Netflix videos were shown in flight.
Wow.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this pans out. I don't think, unless we've kind of gone forward 1,000 years, that they're going to have the same speeds as what I'm getting here at home.
Well, I mean, if
well,
they
clearly
did,
I'm going to have to take my coffee table with me and wedge that up against the emergency exit.
Absolutely, yes, to ensure that high-speed internet is available, because that's making all the difference, certainly this morning.
I mean, if they can offer the speeds that we're getting here at home, then that means that me and Matt can technically go on board their flight and broadcast
a show. Well, that'd be excellent. Yeah. I mean,
there's a couple of elements here, isn't there? I mean, firstly, they talk about the speeds that you get at home. Well, I get 1.5 meg at home.
Really?
That's the speed of my broadband. Yeah,
Wow.
That's the best that BT combined with the internet service providers can come up with at the minute.
Okay.
And I'm in a reasonably large hotel in the middle of the United Kingdom in the developed world, and I'm wedged into a corner.
Yes.
So
yes.
we have some way to go to start to make comparisons. But yes, I think that it's going to be very interesting when 400 people decide that they want to watch the 4K movies on Netflix, all at the same time.
Well, also, I mean, it depends on what part of the country, as you say, that they're using as their benchmark for faster than at home. Because, as I say, we're quite lucky here in the fact that we can get sort of download speeds of around about 40 megabit here. Between 20 and 40 megabit. But I mean, the other thing that I thought was quite interesting about this story, only because I was reading a story about it this week, is Netflix are now enforcing what they call geo-blocking on their systems, which means that you can only watch content that's available in your country, as where beforehand people could use VPN systems in order to sort of get round where you were in the UK, because the US version is much better, for example, than the UK version. And I know people who are using VPNs to sort of pretend they were in the States, if you like, to then watch that. So it'll be interesting to see how they get round that, given the fact that they'll be sort of flying around the world. I mean,
it's going to be difficult. I mean, I use a VPN so that when I'm watching filth on the internet, it looks as if I'm using Carlos's internet service provider account.
Quite right. Absolutely. Yes, and that's why Google invented in private browsing. But yeah. was just it is again because the only other way I can think of them doing it is using satellite systems, and I've been looking at satellite systems this week because we're trying to come up with a way of broadcasting live from the 2 air shows that we're going at, and I was looking, but you can get quite good download speeds of 20 megabit, but only 6 megabit is the best you can get to sort of send up. Plus,
you've got to walk around with a dish on your head and a suitcase full of batteries.
That is true. Exactly, yes, yeah. I it's not a perfect system, Captain Al. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas. It's just because that's the only trouble. Because I don't know. I mean, I have to say, because you've been to Farnborough, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I don't suppose you did a speed test while you were there.
No,
were you?
that was pre.
I think we're going to end up. I think we're going to end up doing it from the hotel, aren't we? But it was just.
We might get surprised.
Yeah.
What you might find, depending on who your mobile phone provider is that when there are large events on, people like Vodafone, etc., the mobile phone networks are available, put in additional mobile infrastructure to cope for the increased demand, because obviously there are going to be a lot of people making mobile phone calls at Farnborough saying, "Where are you?"
Yeah, true.
Well, I'm at the XYZ stand, and they're going to go, "Well, so am I, and I can't see you." You know, it's the standard, "Can you hear me now?" call that we tend to have.
Yeah.
Or, did you get the text message that I sent to you? Yes, I've sent you the reply. Yes, I was just checking that you got the message.
Okay, yes. Yeah, no, I see what you mean.
So you might find that works out. But going back to the original story, one of the problems that we've had, certainly in Europe, with regards to, if we call it the internet on board, because, of course, Wi-Fi on board and the internet on board are 2 separate entities. But with regards to having the World Wide Web on board, with regards to streaming video, is that very thing about licensing. It's been somewhat easier in the United States on domestic flights because, of course, the United States is one licensing area for a film.
Yeah.
In the Europe area, and of course we cross over quite a lot into Africa and the Middle East, we're into multiple licensing areas, and this has caused a lot of problems as to the legalities of where the license prevails when the aircraft, say, is flying from the UK over continental Europe to Africa or whatever. And I think that probably moves are in foot to be able to resolve that, but it is certainly going to be an issue, not necessarily with providing the bandwidth, but how the companies like Netflix handle the licensing agreements that they have with the filmmakers, the studios, etc. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
No, it is exciting. I mean, I make it sound like I'm sort of anti, and I'm really not anti. It is really exciting. But as I say, I'm struggling to get my head around how the legality element to it, given sort of recent news about geo blocking and things being enforced on Netflix's services.
I think the way Netflix are going to have to go, and it's going to be difficult for them because obviously there's an evolution, is simply when, worldwide licensing. Because as we go ever increasingly into global travel using the internet, then that's the only way I can see that they're going to go.
Yeah, no, agreed. Agreed. Yes. Right, we better move on, I suppose.
We better move on. Yes. I have to say that on that note there, if I was having Wi-Fi on board the aircraft, I would probably be sitting on Flight Radar 24.
Seeing what's around.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But that's just me.
It is just you, I think. Yeah. Yes, no, fair enough. Yeah, okay.
So the next story.
Yes, the next story, as per usual, it is story number 2, which must mean it's a Ryanair story. Good news, though, for or shall I say confident news from Mr. O'Leary, because he's always very shy and retiring, as we know. So the Irish Times is the newspaper, and the headline is Ryanair aims to overtake EasyJet as UK's largest airline this year. Michael O'Leary has said that Ryanair is on course to overtake EasyJet as the biggest UK carrier by the end of the year, in tandem with plans to position itself as the second largest in Germany within a similar time frame. Mr. O'Leary presented the growth as further momentum for the airline's European dominance. Speaking at the US Embassy's Creative Minds Creative Disruption economic conference in Dublin on Wednesday, the outspoken chief executive said a new design in future Boeing aircraft and their improved fuel consumption rates would help further the company's ambitions. Ryanair has an initial order of 200 Boeing 737s, dubbed as the Game Changer by Mr. O'Leary, which will come into circulation between 2019 and 2023. They will transform the cost base of offering 4% more passenger capacity, that's 8 seats per flight, and yet still manage to deliver more comfortable travel. I do love how they cram in a few more people. On top of that, Mr. O'Leary said that the aircraft could cut per passenger fuel consumption by up to 19%. That is quite an impressive number. We have to keep finding creative ways to take out costs, he said after addressing a conference focusing largely on innovation. Fuel costs represent around 45% of the airline's expenditure. If we can reduce that by a double-digit number, it means that we are again getting closer and closer to my idea where ultimately we can lower our average fares from €45 to €25. Wow. While revealing part of its strategy to expand Europe market share, Mr. O'Leary reiterated that Ryanair could not source a fleet of long-haul aircraft cheaply due to a backlog of orders from Gulf carriers, and so any potential for a future of no-frills transatlantic flight was off the table for at least 5 years. With services slowly returning to Brussels following the recent terrorist attacks, Mr. O'Leary said that the potential for further such incidents was always a threat to the sector. The danger for us is that you will have one or two more of these events somewhere in Europe during the summer, and that will undoubtedly affect customer confidence, he said. At the end of this conference, he implored business leaders to encourage UK voters to reject next month's referendum on a potential EU exit. To do so, he said, would be economically detrimental and leave the campaign. And the Leave campaign had nothing to offer. I think it will be very close. The economy in the UK is struggling. If they vote just on the issue, I think the vast majority of the UK would vote to remain, he said. But if it becomes a kind of mid-term referendum on the Conservative government, then I think it's going to be very, very close.
So looking at the two airlines side by side, I mean, the two low-cost carriers, EasyJet and Ryanair. I mean, Ryanair have got a huge fleet of aircraft. There are 326 aircraft in service at the moment. They've got some quite big orders with Boeing for the 737 MAX and EasyJet. So 326 for Ryanair, and EasyJet have got 225 aircraft with orders, 182 orders on the books for the new 320 Neos. So Ryanair have got, they've definitely got the larger fleet. So I suppose you could say that they will be the largest low-cost carrier in the UK for sure, I think.
I don't know I don't really understand. I mean, I'm surprised that they haven't made more effort in regard to the transatlantic thing, because I reckon that's the next market they're going to go after. I hope they don't, personally.
Well, but Norwegian have had issues, haven't they? Norwegian have had problems, because with the States and that, doing the low-cost flights from the UK over to the US, and they've had issues with the US. I think they've something to do with one of the I forget what it is now. The laws or something to do with flying across there, and that they've had issues with. Al probably knows more than I do.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems that they've had is with respect to the fact that when you're being a low-cost carrier, one of the areas that you have to look at is obviously trying to keep all of your costs down, operating the airline, not just representing low costs to the customer. And certain things that Norwegian have done have maybe alienated the infrastructure within the United States. And therefore, it has put them under the spotlight with regards to certain perfectly safe practices that may not fit in with the normal way of doing things. And it is very difficult to obtain licenses and so forth when everybody is against you, as it were. Yeah. So I think one of the difficulties that any carrier will have, and Ryanair have shouted from the hilltop some years ago that they were going to revolutionise long haul, and a lot of people in the industry thought, no, this is just marketing. It's getting Ryanair into the newspaper and on the media in the same way as they did when they said that they were going to charge for using the toilet. These are just clever marketing tools, really.
Keeping themselves in the headlines, essentially.
Absolutely. And it is exceptionally difficult to do a low-cost, long-haul product, primarily because It's the premium passengers with those very, very expensive fares that largely pay for the operation, and the bums on the seats in Y class and economy are an added bonus. Now, if you take out those premium passengers, then you are reliant on filling an aeroplane. And when you're looking at long haul, so say, for example, if someone was going to operate from Stansted to Newark in the United States, because they wouldn't get into JFK.
No.
The majority of people who go to New York out of the UK are not necessarily going to New York, they're connecting onwards.
Right.
So what you need to have then is code share agreements with other airlines such that you will go from Stansted to New York and then maybe on to Detroit or somewhere like that as a pure example. And what people aren't going to want to do is to get to Newark, get off, go through immigration, collect your bag, go out of the airport, back in, recheck it, go through security again, blah, 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 and then board a different flight. They want, their bag to be checked through to Detroit, and they want to just basically transit in Newark. But all of the low-cost carriers are all point-to-point carriers, and there's no set up really for joining to point-to-point carriers as it stands. And I think that's a fundamental hurdle for anybody who wants to do long haul on the cheap, really.
And as you say, it is that whole that issue with regard to trying to get sort of connection flights, isn't it? Because Ryanair are not going to use a major airport, are they? I mean, I'm frankly surprised that you can fly out of Stansted. You'd have thought that had been sort of way out of their sort of budget almost, because it's being a major.
Well, if you look at the sort of history of that, I know Stansted is fairly close to you guys, but prior to Ryanair, Stansted was a nothing.
Right.
It was a country backwater airport that just didn't feature on the map. And candidly, it still doesn't feature on the sort of international map. It is, none of the major international carriers operate out of Stansted to the best of my knowledge. So you don't have any, Delta flights in there. You don't have any Qantas flights in there. It is basically a Ryanair hub. So and if Ryanair were to pull out of Stansted, other than the cargo flights at night, I don't think there would be a lot left.
Right, I see. I see what you mean.
So in that sense, they have fairly good. What's the best way of describing it? Commercial advantage when negotiating their rates at Stansted,
because it means a lot to them. Yeah,
absolutely. And when you think about airports, you might initially think about things like landing fees, handling fees, etc., etc. Airports don't make their money in Europe in that. It's the shops.
Yes. Yeah.
And if you think about all of the passengers who are going to travel on Ryanair, now they know that it's going to be quite an expensive affair on board with regards to purchasing sandwiches, or maybe a can of pop.
Yeah.
So if there's a shop that is selling sandwiches and a can of pop in the terminal, still quite expensive prices, but maybe not as expensive as the Ryanair sandwich and pop. You're going to buy it there.
Yeah, so I mean, presumably a similar sort of thing maybe with EasyJet and Luton, perhaps, which is not that big a. And I mean, I know they call it London Luton, but I mean, is it because of some people like like EasyJet being there, which is why that's such a big hub?
Yeah. I mean, again, historically, Luton has always played sort of second or third fiddle. And, of course, Luton, going back into the sort of 60s and 70s, was, if you lived in the southeast, typically where you went on your holiday flight from, because Gatwick was getting a bit more congested, and the likes of sort of, Danair and Court Line, etc., were operating ever increasingly out of Luton. So there is, a very distinct difference of category between the London airports. We have Heathrow, which is a very large, very, very busy airport, ostensibly business travel, or where the majority of passengers on a flight are business. We've got Gatwick, which is half leisure, half business. Stansted, which is low cost. Luton has got a fair amount of low cost, but it's also got a very, very large contingent of business jets. If you've ever gone past the hangars at Luton, you'll see an awful lot of biz jets. And, of of course, that's where the pepperoni's based.
Yes,
So,
yes.
So we've almost created a sort of system where each of the airports in London has a role.
Yeah.
And if Ryanair were to pull out, or indeed if the UK pulls out of Europe, which might make it interesting for Ryanair at Stansted, bearing in mind that they don't actually have any aircraft registered in the UK.
Really?
They're all on the Irish register. So if the UK pulls out of Europe, then that'll make it, as I say, a little interesting. So if Ryanair were to remove themselves from Stansted, Stansted would become just a backwater once again.
Yeah. Interesting that Nev's just said that's apparently there's fewer chavs in Luton than Stansted. Even Pip flies out of there, which is perhaps a bit harsh. But anyway, yes, I don't know whether that's
whilst we're
insinuating.
talking about Ryanair, as a slight aside, I saw the new Ryanair cabin crew uniform for the first time face to face yesterday, and I have to say, I'm not a big Ryanair fan, as many of us aren't, but it does look very smart.
Does it?
And it does look a tad easier to remove of an evening in the hands of a ham-fisted pilot than the old one.
Okay. That's what she said. Indeed. Good. Excellent. Finally, you have a use for your new desk.
I know.
Right. Anyway, we must move on to the next story. This one is with you, Carlos.
Yeah, CH Aviation, CH Aviation website, this one. And one of the airlines, one of my favourite little airlines, Iceland Air, they're to acquire 2 more Boeing 767s. Iceland Air over in Reykjavik, Keflavik.
That's a great name. I love that, Reykjavik.
They've signed an agreement with an undisclosed firm for the purchase of 2 additional 767-300ERs. The aircraft, which will shortly undergo refurbishment, are expected to enter service early next year. The Icelandic carrier already dry leases 2 767-300ERs, and they've also recently delivered TF or Tango Foxtrot India Sierra November, with a second one due soon as well to the fleet. They've got Iceland Air have got a fleet of 28 aircraft in service with 19 on order. They've got an all Boeing fleet, Iceland Air.
That's a great picture. I'll just pop that up on the.
They've ordered. They've also got some of the new 737 Maxes on order. The Max 8s, they've got 9 of those on order, and the Max 9, they've got 7 of those on order. Iceland Air have, and but no, it's great to see that they're sticking with Boeing. Obviously, the best way to go, as we all know. Our guests will agree with that. And yeah.
I couldn't possibly comment.
Right, of course, yes. Ever the diplomat, yes. Absolutely.
Just chopping my legs off at the knees so I can get in the thing.
Oh, I see. Right, okay. So, yes, so great news. So what's the... Can you explain to me the 767? What's the difference between that and sort of what I call as like the 737 that I'm more familiar with?
Well, the 76, Matt, is a wide-bodied aircraft.
Okay, right.
And still twin-engined.
Okay.
And it is one of those twin aisle aircraft.
So is it bigger?
Yes, it's a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. It's nice. It's quite an old, well-versed aircraft now,
right.
Which was kind of like taken over by the 777 when the 777 came out. It was like the slightly bigger brother, as such, of the 76. But no, good news that is.
Okay. Excellent.
Next story on
yes.
Flight Global.
Yes, this is Flight Global, and the headline is EasyJet still weighing A321 as higher density A320s arrive. EasyJet is expecting to take delivery of its first higher density Airbus A320 this month, but is still weighing the possibility of acquiring the larger A321. The UK budget carrier disclosed during a half-year financial briefing that the shift in its fleet balance away from the A319 towards the A320 had generated a 0.38 pence benefit in cost per seat, so that's about 55 cents. Chief Executive Carolyn McCall, speaking at the briefing, said that the first 186-seat A320 would be delivered to the carrier this month. She said the airline is planning to retrofit. I'm really having trouble talking today, aren't I? Retrofit the increased seating to 105 other A320s, and that 53 aircraft in its fleet would carry the higher density cabin by summer 2017. But the airline remains undecided on the A321neo, to which it has the option to convert some of its on-order order A320neo jets. McCall said that the company is conducting a rigorous review of the type. Was this the Neo that we were talking about with having
engine
option? But isn't that one that was having
Absolutely
engine
awesome
problems?
aeroplane. It's beautiful to look at. It's highly efficient. Got superb performance. What else could you want?
Right. Okay.
There we go.
Does he mean that? I'm not sure.
No.
Oh, right. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it doesn't look like you've shoved on a couple of donkeys on the side of a wing and then had to jack it up because it doesn't.
Right. Okay.
Said more.
Careful, family show. Yes. so yes, no, great news then. So it's so I don't know. I mean, are they planning to?
I'm actually surprised. Al, with the amount of passengers that EasyJet carry in the UK, I'm surprised they haven't taken got the 321 in as opposed to just to get more people on their flights.
Yeah. It's. I think the economics of it are a tricky one. I'm not falling over. It's just the iPad that's disappearing.
Bye. Yes, he's
bye.
Well, yeah, he's looking. Let's put that out. There we go. There we go. It's a lovely view of your nostrils there. It has to be said. It's all gone horribly wrong. We're gonna go back to Carlos while you carry on. Hello. Yes. Excellent.
What was I saying? Yeah, I think probably. All of the existing Airbus carriers are just seeing what they can do with regards to negotiating the best deal. Just like car manufacturers in some ways, when a new model comes out and you walk into the car showroom and you say, I'm interested in that, what sort of deal can you give me? And the bloke falls off his chair laughing, saying, well, there's a waiting list for those. You say, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
Do you want to sell me one or not? And you play this sort of little cat and mouse game, really. And of course, with regards to the Airbus, EasyJet are an entirely Airbus operation, and therefore Boeing are obviously going to be quite competitive because they want to steal the glory of nabbing an Airbus customer. And Airbus will be a little bit smug in some ways, saying, "Well, we've got EasyJet, and maybe we don't have to, go that extra mile on the best deal because they're just going to come to us anyway because they've got so many, and it would be a logical thing for them to stay Airbus." I don't know what it's like worldwide, but you guys will know that when it comes to sort of mortgages, you get a far better deal if you're a new customer of the bank than if you've been with them for 30 years.
Yeah, of course, yeah. It's one of the. I mean, that'd be a heck of a coup, though, wouldn't it, for Boeing to actually pinch someone like EasyJet from them. I mean, but I mean that would be so massive, though, because I mean, presumably they're kitted out for Airbus, aren't they, with regard to spares and workshops and things like that. I mean, that'd be such a major thing to do, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, when something like that happens, and of course it does, because at the end of the day, the bean counters will, sit around and look at it. And if the manufacturer is going to offer you such a phenomenally good rate on the airframes, and then take into account, and it's not uncommon for the manufacturers to say, we'll pay for all of your training costs and we'll provide you with a spares inventory, because often, in these sort of deals, the actual cost of the airframe is almost like a loss leader.
Right.
And it's the ongoing provision of spares and aftercare that they can make their money, really. And ultimately, when we start to look at it on an even deeper level, if we take Boeing, for example, Boeing in the United States employ a phenomenal number of people directly and indirectly in all of the subcontractors and suppliers, that there will be government-to-government talks with regards to these deals and how much, in essence, they're going to be sort of in part underwritten, because obviously there'll be grant money available, etc., which don't directly come into the sales order, but obviously can make the product very beneficial for someone to sign on the dotted line. Because if, for example, no one bought Boeing aircraft in the future, then all of those people would be unemployed and the government would have to fund them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, bit like steelworks, isn't it? There's that sort of thing. There's so many people suddenly out of work. Yeah,
absolutely. So there's an awful lot to these computations and agreements and negotiations. And the truth is that no one ever really knows what, outside of the confines of the deal makers, what price was actually paid for the airframes.
Yeah.
The list price is just something that's imagined up. And,
nobody pays that.
If whip round and go to Boeing, then we would probably get, list price minus a bit for being a new customer.
Yeah.
But we would certainly get a more expensive rate than if EasyJet were to say to Boeing, do you want to do us a deal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We'll put it on Pip's credit card. That'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll work. Yeah.
Well, having used Pip's credit card in the past, I personally wouldn't bother.
You know where it's been. No, indeed, yes. Anyway, on to the next
Nothing
story.
worse than being turned down for a packet of peanuts at a bar.
Well, absolutely, highly embarrassing. Indeed, agreed. Lovely, poor Pip, honestly. Anyway, next story. This is on CH Aviation.
I'm waiting for him to come fighting back on the chat room.
Yeah, I know. I dare say he will stand up for himself. They have no fear of that. It is, yes, before we get sued. Next story is on chaviation.com, and the headline is Iran Air. Iran Air retires its last remaining B747-200R. Boo. The headline, is. So I'm trying to do graphics at the same time. That's
there we go.
So Iran Air has retired its last remaining Boeing 747-200B from active commercial service. Iranian news sources have reported originally delivered to Lufthansa in 1982 as Delta Alpha Bravo Yankee X-ray. Woohoo, get me. The B747-200 conducted its last commercial flight on Saturday, May the 8th, following which it was parked at Tehran Iman. It was parked in Tehran.
It's parked somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. With no more cycles left on its airframe, and with a fleet of new Airbus aircraft due in the coming months, Iran Air has opted to retire the aircraft instead. It continues to operate the 747 and the 747 SP on commercial flights. Iran signed multi-billion-dollar deals with Airbus and earlier this year, involving the purchase of almost 140 aircraft in total. According to the aviation, Iran deliveries will begin this year with 5 A320s and A330s, along with 3 ATR 72-600s in 2017. 14 aircraft, unspecified, are expected also to arrive. In total, the Iranians' firm order is 20 ATR 72-600s with 20 additional options, 21 A320 CEO family jets, 24 A320 Neo family jets, 27 A330 CEO or CEO
current engine option
family jets, 18 A330 Neos, that's the Dash 900 series, and 16 A350 1000s or 12 A380 800. I think it's fair to say they're buying a lot of aircraft.
So the picture that we flashed up on the screen there for this story,
here,
and for most of you guys in the chat room will know, the story is about the 747-200.
Oh, here we go.
But that's actually the 747 SP special performance. That one.
Okay.
That's the one they're carrying on. They've got actually Ryanair have got. Where are we? Here we go. They've got one of those actually that they use.
That's the squeeze them in and pack them in version.
That's
right.
it. That is the squeeze them in and pack them in version.
Cozy.
The SP.
Yeah.
But no, they've. I was actually looking up some history on a Ryanair while you were doing that story, Matt. And believe it or not, I don't know whether anyone in the chat room or Al knows this, but actually on the 8th of October 1972, Ryanair actually placed an order with the British Aircraft Corporation for 2 Concords.
Wow.
Plus one option. These orders were cancelled in April 1980, making Iran Air the last airline to cancel its Concorde orders.
Oh.
But they did lease one from BA.
Right,
yeah.
okay.
So I never knew that. So
No,
Iran
no.
Air actually, they had
And that's a
orders for
reliable
2.
source. That's not
That is
it's
on.
not wiki.
That's a reliable source. That's
Right. Oh, well, there we
interesting.
are.
That one.
There you
There we
go.
go.
Actually, I do seem to recall hearing that story from elsewhere, and many years ago. So I think that is probably factual, because, and I'm stretching my geographical and political history limits to their absolute extreme here. But of course, going back to the 70s, Iran was a very different setup with regards to its political regime, and much more allied to the United Kingdom at that time. I think we were good friends and good trading buddies at that point. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that they had orders for Concorde. And of course, this order that they've now placed is simpler as a result of being allowed to place orders, being allowed back into the gentleman's club, as it were.
Embargoes having been lifted, etc.
Absolutely, having served your punishment for bearing your bottom at the chairman.
Yes,
so it comes as no great surprise that they've ordered just about everything that's available.
They've gone a bit mad. Yes,
gone on a mass spending spree. In Harrods, isn't it? I'll have 2 of those, 1 of those, 3 of those, 4 of those. I'll have a couple of
well,
them.
they do say you can order anything from Harrods. Perhaps that's where they came for it.
Well, quite possibly. Matt, you were asking earlier a little bit about the 767.
Yes.
Do you know what an A330 looks like?
No.
Okay. Well, it's basically.
Is it in my top trumps cards? I can find. I'll
He's
find
got his trumps cards somewhere.
I'll find my
top trumps cards. Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically that the A330 is what the 767 should have been.
Right. I see. He had to get that in.
And going back to that last story, we'll just have to say that Iran Air obviously.
You mentioned the 330.
Yeah, absolutely. You were quite right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we have to say that Iran Air obviously just sort of like picked the cheap and cheerful versions of what they wanted. Yeah, they obviously
did they?
Yeah, they didn't want to go with the.
I wasn't aware
the proper Boeing aircraft, the ones that actually have control yokes and stuff. They wanted.
Right. I wasn't aware that any aircraft were cheap. It's just like. But,
they
anyway,
are when you're using Pip's credit card. Anyway.
Woohoo.
So on to
no. Captain Al's already maxed it out on peanuts. We've covered
sorry.
that. Yeah,
I can eat a lot of peanuts.
Yeah, indeed, absolutely.
So next story is on the Breaking Travel News site. We've got a little video to go with this, which is quite funny. The headline: Lufthansa advert gently mocks England football fans.
Oh dear.
So German flag carrier Lufthansa has released an advert poking fun at England football fans ahead of the European Championships.
Big sigh.
The spot features 2 well-dressed English supporters being inadvertently rebooked onto a Lufthansa flight. They're overwhelmed by visions of stereotypical German music, food and fans before being relieved to discover it was all a dream.
Yes.
The ad is part of a wider effort by the airline to capitalise on the championships. Over the next few weeks, Lufthansa will once again turn into Fanhansa ahead of the tournament in France. A special aircraft will be provided for the flight of the German national team to the team's headquarters. In addition, the Fanhansa logo, which is known from the World Cup in 2014, the plane's fuselage will be decorated with the names of some of 350 fans. The motto of our European Cup campaign is "Everyone's Fanhansa."
Oh dear.
The idea behind the new Fanhansa plane is that football fans will join us as we fly the national team to France on June the 7th. The Boeing 747-8 still causes a stir as it flies around the world and will continue to do so until the 2018 World Cup. So,
did you say that they've made an advert featuring English football fans relieving themselves in public?
Not quite. Not quite. Okay,
but say that's not an unusual event.
No.
An advert, really.
It's not normal. It's not normally televised.
I think the thing well-dressed England football fans.
Indeed.
Is
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to play that little advert for you now. We do have permission to do it, so hopefully YouTube shouldn't get funny about it. So we're just going to have
a short one.
Yeah, it's only a short one. So we're just going to play the ad out for you right now.
Flight's cancelled. They've rebooked us on Lufthansa.
Lufthansa?
We're flying with the Germans.
Frühstück!
Jetzt hat die Chance. Und Deutschland im Finale!
Is everything okay?
Cheers. Non-stop you. Lufthansa.
There we go.
That really does make me laugh.
That was rather amusing, I will say.
It was, yes, absolutely.
Did you enjoy that one,
I
Al?
watched that. I'm not privy to the sound of it, so I watched it in that sort of old classic silent movie style. And I have to say that having worked in TV commercials a long, long time ago, if a TV commercial works without the sound, then you've achieved a good result.
Yeah,
and I have to say that was really quite funny, just watching it and not
even
listening
on the visuals, as you say, because a lot of people do tend to turn the sound down, don't they, while they're making their cup of tea or whatever. So no, well done. I don't mind having the fun poked at us. That's quite a good little advert, that, to be fair. Well done, well done. So
that was quite interesting. I like that. Actually,
absolutely.
Neville Bounds in the chat room has put something rather interesting. Matt, can you see that?
I think Matt should read it out.
Yeah, so should I. What does that stand for then, Matt? What has Neville said?
Okay, all right. This is just to make me go bright red, isn't it? It's essentially, you know what Lufthansa stands for? Let us fondle the hostesses and not say anything. Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks, Nev.
So
Always a
British
pleasure.
Airways going to do a reply to the Lufthansa TV commercial.
They should do. Yeah. Do they have the money to do such things? I don't know.
I think they have the money, but these things do take a lot of planning, so maybe it'll be out in 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years' time, quite right, absolutely. Well, anyway, so from all of us here, not that they care, but from all of us here at PT UK Studios, well done, Lufthansa.
Yes, well done. Lovely advert.
Yeah,
lovely
absolutely.
advert.
Yes, so on to the next story. Yes, this would be me, and I'm pressing all the wrong buttons, so we'll go to that one, and it is on CH.
That's what my wife says.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, seriously, I'm going to take that tablet away from you in a minute. So chaviation.com is the headline. Is not the headline, it's the website. And the headline is Emirates. Here we go. Emirates mulls ordering 60 more A380s. Oh, great news for Airbus. Emirates is considering acquiring additional A380-800s to both replace and expand its existing fleet. Airline President Timothy Clark told a press conference in Dubai this week. According to Clark, with Airbus industry in Toulouse unwilling to commit to the development of the A380 Neo, given that Emirates is the type's only current customer, the carrier may be forced to purchase up to 60 of the CEO versions of the A380 instead. If they decide not to bring the Neo into play, we will buy more of the current A380, Clark was quoted by a certain newspaper, which I'm not sure where that's from, and I can't pronounce it. So as the first batch comes up to retirement, we will want to replace those with more A380s. If you replace over time, it's a continuum of orders. Emirates has thus far taken delivery of 77 out of a total of 140 A380s currently on order from the European manufacturer. Concerning Emirates' much-awaited A350/B787 order, Clark said evaluations were still ongoing with 50 aircraft to be ordered. He added that once a decision had been taken, the new aircraft would only arrive between 2023 and 2025, by which time Emirates will have moved its hub from Dubai International to Dubai World Central. Emirates scrapped a $16 billion order placed with Airbus in 2007 for 50 A350-900s and 20 A350-1000s in June 2014. Deliveries were to have commenced from 2019 onwards.
So Emirates then have a huge fleet of A380s already. They've got 77 of those.
You've flown with them, haven't you?
Yeah, a few times on the 380 now, yeah. And they are the largest operator of the Airbus A380. And with that order, I mean, that's huge. I mean, they've got 3 different density classes they have for the 380. And the most being 615 they squeeze on one of those. Down to 489 on the version I have with the bigger economy and first class sections. But fantastic
Carlos,
news.
with that sort of passenger load of 600 odd people, do they have to limit the number of people who have curry?
Well, actually, that's that particular configuration. That's 58 in business and 557 in economy.
So book business class by the sound of it, because the cabin will be less congested.
To be fair, honestly, Al, I mean, I'm shocked that I'm going to say these words, but
here we go.
But it's a fantastic aircraft to be on.
Of course it is. It's an Airbus. I mean, it's designed with the passenger in mind. It's designed with the accountant in mind.
Okay.
And it's designed with the pilot in mind. I mean, it is, I mean, let's be honest, the A380, it's not a looker, but it's certainly a beautiful aeroplane from a passenger's point of view when you're in it.
Mm. I've only had experiences of the A319, and I have to say I thought that was a very nice craft, and to be honest, probably the nicest aeroplane I've ever been on. Because I was lucky enough to have one of the new ones that EasyJet have been rolling out when we went. I can't remember. I think Sharm el Sheikh.
Yeah.
When we went out, and it was a really nice aircraft. I had more legroom than I've ever had in my life.
Have you had a chance, Al, to go up on the flight deck of the 380?
No is the answer to that. I've had a virtual visit to the 380 flight deck, and I have very briefly popped into the 380 simulator. So yes, I've seen the flight deck, but not a real one, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an Airbus. It's got
You'd
lots
like
of
to have a
familiar
go.
bits.
You'd like to have a go.
Take one for a spin.
Would I like to have a go? Yes, I would. Would I like to fly it as my primary job? No, not really. Only because it's ostensibly a large people mover from one large city to another large city.
Right.
And the sort of quality flying that you get on that sort of operation is a little bit more limited. It still has its challenges. You're operating a very large aeroplane. However, I've always quite liked the mix of sort of one day going to Madrid or Barcelona, and the next day, going to the Greek islands and doing some proper sort of hands-on flying. So to just be sort of stuck on the 380 isn't really for me as a choice.
Oh.
Well,
perhaps Royal Jet will buy a few.
Right, you never know. You never know. On to the next story.
Next story on CH Aviation. And a bit of a humorous story, this one. This is rather interesting, I might say. This is not the first time this has happened either in the last year. Chang'an Airlines in embarrassing water salute boob. Chang'an Airlines endured an embarrassing
Easy for you to say.
an embarrassing first day back in the air as an independent carrier after fire trucks at Zhuhai accidentally sprayed the 737-8 with fire-suppressing foam instead of water during the traditional water cannon salute.
Oops.
The China Aviation Daily
Did they
reports...
do their training at Manchester?
Possibly, yes, absolutely. Perhaps it was the same team.
The China Aviation Daily reports the aircraft, which had just arrived from its inaugural flight from Lian Dangyang on Monday the 9th of this week, was forced to undergo several safety checks after the foam was found to have blocked the engine intakes. However, owing to the nature of the blockage, the return flight was subsequently cancelled, with passengers put up in hotels. Prior to its relaunch as an independent carrier, Chang'an Airlines had operated exclusively as a capacity provider to parent Hainan Airlines. What do you reckon of that one, Al? Bit of slight issue with water and foam.
Yeah, I mean, as you've alluded to at the start of it, it's not the first time it's happened.
No.
And I'm not entirely certain as to how these sort of situations play out after the event. Because obviously, for an inaugural flight and relating to the story that affected poor old Virgin Atlantic at Manchester when one of their 330s was ceremonially doused with foam on its inaugural flight to Atlanta, I think it was.
Yeah.
Obviously, the airport authority and the airline initially are like, yes, well, we'll put on a little bit of a show for you. Fantastic, brilliant. Thanks very much. We'll do a water salute. Oh, that would be brilliant. That will make great photos.
Yeah.
And then after the event, it must go along the lines of, what the bloody hell did he do?
Yeah, absolutely. What happened there? Yeah, terrible thing.
And lawyers get involved, and I'm sure there's insurance claims galore.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, because I don't suppose it's the cheapest thing, especially if you've got intakes. I mean, you've got to have a full inspection, haven't you?
There is actually, because I spoke to the Royal Jet engineers about this, because I happened to be in Manchester. I was actually taxiing one of my aeroplanes, and although I didn't actually see it, I saw the aftermath. and I certainly heard it going on the radio at
Yes,
the
I can
time.
imagine. Yes. What have you done?
Well, it kind of went along the lines of, no!
As it went, as suddenly this foam went everywhere. Oh, dear.
And I have to say it wasn't me, but there was someone who was pretty sharp-witted. And
Really?
I'll just digress slightly. When we come in to land on the Airbus, the aeroplane enunciates to you that it wants you to retard the thrust lever. So it'll shout out, retard, which everyone in the chat room will know about.
Yes.
But when they started to spray the 330 inadvertently with foam, some very smart aleck came on the radio and just went, retard.
Oh, what a clever radio. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to have to just...
going back to it, I spoke to to our engineers, and I said, like, what's the deal here? I mean, obviously, it's not going to just go off flying.
No.
We know that. But is there actually a maintenance procedure? And they went, do you know what? There is. For the Airbus,
Really?
they actually have a documented procedure for inadvertent application of foam to airframe.
Wow. That's a very thorough risk assessment, isn't it? I mean, that's all bases covered.
It is.
Yes, there we are.
Basically, as you might imagine, it involves inspecting the engines and all of the inlets and all of the probes and so forth. And it is quite a lengthy investigation because by its very nature, the foam is quite foamy. And it tends to get
tends
everywhere.
to stick to stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't designed for this purpose.
No, it was.
So it's a roughly sort of 12 hours of downtime for the engines, for the aeroplane rather.
Right, now somebody said we're just going to go. I'm just at the chat room because obviously we read out Neville's comment earlier. Somebody just needs to explain to me on that note. I shall get back to my emergency, not quite a 7700. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Squawk. Squawk 777, but a pan. What,
Is that when Neville's wife found him in bed with a Lufthansa hostess by any chance?
Quite possibly. I wouldn't put it.
Or with one of the
more of a Mayday now?
It might be a Mayday, I think, more than
it might have been one of those easy to remove new Ryanair uniforms.
Oh dear, here we go. That's it. Anyway, quickly. Let's walk away from that comedy cul-de-sac immediately.
That's easy for you to say.
Apparently not. Oh, that was so clever.
There we go. Next
it.
story on.
Just very, very, very quickly. You have to feel sorry for an airline, regardless of where it is in the world, for their very first flight to be
ruined by foam.
Ruined. I was thinking of a more.
Yeah, I know, but I'm
ruined. Yes.
Yeah, indeed. I'm forever looking at the family show element to it, trying not to get sued. Yeah. Anyway, yes. Next story, Carlos. This is with you. Is it or is it me? I can't remember.
It's you. This one.
Is it all right?
Yeah. If the old fart can say an equivalent of basket on airline pilot guy, then I think we're doing all right.
We are doing quite well. I'm just a bit nervous because I do promise YouTube that our show is family friendly, so one always has to be a bit wary. And they have been a bit funny with us sometimes. They have taken us off air once before.
Oh, that was only because we played
because we accidentally played copyrighted material, which was
nasty YouTube.
I know, nasty YouTube people. But
so basically, I can swear all I like.
No, you can't. No. Abort.
No.
Yes, I need to develop a delay, don't I? I don't know how that would even work. Anyway, by the by, it is me. The next story is on the flyingmag.com, and the headline is Delta. Oh dear. Delta flight makes emergency landing after engine cowling falls off mid-flight. Oh, this is not good. Some passengers with window seats aboard a Delta flight got more than they bargained for over the weekend when a loose engine cowling came off mid-flight, prompting an emergency landing. Flight 762 from Atlanta to Chicago was over Tennessee on Sunday afternoon when the airliner hit turbulence, and there's that word again, turbulence, and the engine light came on. Reports Nashville's WTVF. The pilot then made an emergency landing at Nashville International Airport. Photos taken of the 717 after landing show the exposed engine and damage to the plane where the cowling might have struck the fuselage. No passengers were injured in the incident, and Delta says it had reached out to them with a gesture of apology. The airline also says it's investigating what went wrong during the flight, but no other details have emerged so far.
What was the aircraft type? Does the article say?
It was a 717.
Okay, so a Boeing then.
Yeah,
God, I knew it.
indeed, quite right.
I should have lied and said it was an Airbus.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Yes, Al, it was a 717.
These sort of things do happen from time to time. Let's be honest about it. Regardless of engine manufacturer, airline, or whatever, there are a lot of components on an aeroplane, and every now and again, something mechanical, whether it be a latch or whatever, is going to fail.
Yeah.
And I'm not belittling this incident. It has obviously a satisfactory outcome. It could have had a disastrous outcome. But I don't think it's particularly relevant to sort of over-dramatise these things. At the end of the day, bits fall off aeroplanes from time to time. And, you know, as crews, we are trained to deal with these sort of things. There isn't a procedure in the book that says this bit fell off your aeroplane, so you do that.
Yes, I do that.
And this goes into the the realms of, well, I'm a pilot and I'm trying to fly the aeroplane, and I will fly it until the very end, basically. So you just stay with it and do what you can, and hopefully your best will be good enough.
So, I mean, presumably, if something like this happens, I presume there's sensors that say that something is missing. I mean, other than engine lights sort of suggest that a light's come on, a nondescript error message has come up on the computer to say something's not right. But I mean, what sort of data do you get from if something like that happens?
Candidly, we don't have lights or annunciators that say wing has fallen off.
Right. Okay. You probably feel
detached.
that one, to be fair. Yes.
Quite often, it will largely depend on what has fallen off.
Right.
So, a small piece of trim or whatever. So if we talk at like the minor level, there's lots of rubber trim around the side of an aeroplane. They're there for aerodynamic purposes. And if you lose a bit of rubber trim off the side of the aeroplane, you might, in the cabin or on the flight deck, depending where it is, hear quite a strong whistling sound, because now you've got effectively created a very, very expensive multi-million-pound whistle.
Excellent, yes.
Where you have, say, for example, if you've ever looked at underneath a wing of an aeroplane, you'll quite often see what are called canoes. They're the fairings for the flap and slap mechanism, and they're there for aerodynamic purposes, and they occasionally fall off. Revealing the mechanism, and there are very small penalties with regards to fuel consumption for that sort of thing.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not belittling the fact when these things fall off. I mean, some of these things are quite heavy, and if it landed on your head, then you'd be more than a little unhappy about it. Then when we talk about fan covers and cowlings off engines. One of the big concerns is what they hit when they come off.
Yes,
because
of
if
course,
they hit one of the flying controls, then you now have quite a serious problem. And when you've got large bits of aluminium, or in the case of engine cowlings, Kevlar and so forth, smashing into other bits, there's potential for a fair amount of damage.
Yeah.
With regards to this particular one, and it refers to sort of a warning light, it may well be that as this bit of cowling detaches, it takes with it some wiring, or it may have triggered one of the fire loops to fail. That we have basically heat detecting loops around the engine that are used to detect a fire. So if one of those becomes severed, then it will report as a fault in that system. But the most likely occurrence will be someone will come and bang on the door and say a bit's come off. Now, interestingly, this week, whilst I was boarding passengers for my flight, we had a message come via the cabin crew saying that one of the passengers is very concerned because there's a panel open on the engine that shouldn't be open.
Oh.
Now, there are certain panels on the engine, for example, like the panel for opening up to put oil in it and so forth, and access panels. So it was raining, so I said to the first officer, can you go and have a look outside and see what's going on with this engine? And the message that we had from the cabin crew was very specific. It's, the number 2 engine and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So he went out and had a look, and then he came back and he spoke to the passenger. And the large panel that was open on the engine was in fact the forward cargo door.
Right, okay. Because you were loading luggage in, presumably.
Absolutely, yes. Now, that's
right.
quite a big panel.
Yes, yes.
And
Yes. I think
we
I-
generally notice when that's
Yes,
open because
yes.
it's a bit drafty. But it's not attached to the engine.
No.
So, being a little slightly more serious and back to the story, quite often, if that sort of thing happens, the best indication that you're going to get is someone coming up and saying, "Did you know a bit of the engine's come off?"
Yes. Yeah. No, it's
It's actually powered, the 717's powered by Rolls-Royce engines, Al, BR715s, made by
Excellent.
Rolls-Royce.
Yes.
There we go.
excellent. Yes. I don't think he could care less, frankly.
No, I'm a big Rolls-Royce supporter.
Right.
You know, British engineering at its best.
Absolutely.
And
Amen to that.
Even though you know, the actual economics of it are that Rolls-Royce probably is no longer in true British ownership.
No.
It still employs an awful lot of fantastic people in the UK, and some excellent engineering designs come out of Rolls-Royce.
And also remember that the 717 is actually based on the McDonnell Douglas DC-9.
Right. Wow. Oh, that's cool. Anyway, on to the next story.
Next story, CH Aviation website, and the headline, Boeing confirms early Boeing 737 MAX deliveries.
Hooray, an early delivery at long last.
I know. Boeing has confirmed...
But you know why, don't you?
Oh, here we go.
Well, they
frightened.
were going to design a new aeroplane, weren't they? The replacement for the 737.
Yeah.
And now they've decided that, well, the 73 MAX, it's just like, you know, a go faster stripe on the side, and there we are, it's delivered.
Oh, now stop it.
So it's not taken anywhere near as long as they thought to build.
Right, okay, good.
So, getting back to the story.
So anyway, here's a picture of that said aircraft.
According to the Wall Street Journal, Ray Connor, Executive Vice President of Sales at Boeing Commercial Airplanes, told analysts that Boeing's annual investor conference at the US manufacturer now expects to hand over its first Boeing 737 MAX 8 to launch customer, Southwest Airlines, at Dallas Love Field during its first half of 2017, as opposed to the previous official target period of the third quarter. Earlier this year, the paper quoted industry sources as saying the delivery date could be brought forward by as much as 6 months, indicating a possible first quarter handover date. So that's good news.
It is.
Early deliveries anyway.
Yes.
And yes, thanks, Al, for your chip in there on that one.
I have absolutely no doubt that when we at Royal Jet take delivery of our 737 Maxes, that we will use them absolutely at their best, and they will prove to be a very reliable and efficient aeroplane.
You are such a diplomat.
He is. Guys, Al, you'll be able to finally fly a real aircraft.
Oh, stop it! I'm going to bang your two heads together in a minute. Anyway, on to the...
I'm just sorry. No. I'm making up for Nick.
Stop it. We're moving on. We're moving on immediately. I'm going to read the next story before anyone starts shouting at each other. Stop it.
Sorry.
Flight Global is the website. The headline is Hong Kong Airlines investigating A330 engine slip incident. Ooh. Hong Kong Airlines is investigating an engine chain slip incident which happened during a scheduled engine change at Hong Kong International Airport. In response to queries from Flight Global, the carrier confirmed that one of the engines on its A330 was tilted during a scheduled engine change on the 5th of May. The incident is suspected to have be caused by the slipped engine lifting chain and is under internal investigation. There was neither injury or influence to the airline's flight operations and flight safety, says the airline, adding that the case has also been reported to the Hong Kong Civil Aviation Department. Asked if the engine was damaged, the airline declined to comment. An image on a Chinese media report shows that the cowling of the aircraft's left engine tilting towards the ground with visible cracks. Flight Global's fleets analyzer shows that the airline operates 14 Airbus A330s comprising of 9 -200s and 5 -300s. There are 2 powered by a mix of Rolls-Royce Trent 772Bs and Pratt & Whitney's PW4170 engines.
Now, I remember watching a video on YouTube not so long back of them changing an engine on an aircraft, and it's no easy feat.
I'm not sure why this is newsworthy, though. To be brutally
Well,
honest,
I was just going to say, I mean, isn't this just the media at its best? There was no risk to passenger safety.
No, because it was on the ground because it was being serviced.
It was in a hangar.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all make mistakes.
It only had one engine attached to the wing at a time.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was an expensive mistake.
Yes, I dare say it was an expensive mistake. It's just, it's just typical media, isn't it? As you say, it's not. It wasn't in the air. They didn't put it in service until it had been corrected. I mean, it was one of those non-stories, isn't it? Neville will be loving this story.
It is interesting to watch it. If you ever get the chance to watch one of the videos on YouTube of them changing an aircraft engine, it's so fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. Anyway, on to the final story.
And the last story is regarding Delta on Flight Global. And Delta launches automation trend for TSA lanes, or the Transportation Safety Administration. Delta Airlines may have started a new trend by acquiring automated security checkpoints to install at Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport and be operated by the U.S. Transportation Security Administration. The UK-sourced checkpoints are scheduled to be opened on the 24th of May in Atlanta, with the potential to increase throughput by 40% through each lane. Says the TSA Administrator Peter Nefgänger. These two lanes are going in, and now we have other lanes coming in saying we want to buy 20 and now we want to buy 21, says Nefgänger, addressing the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Royal Aeronautical Society on the 12th of May. Faced with steadily increasing passenger traffic through already the world's busiest airport, Delta decided to acquire the security lanes rather than wait for TSA to attempt to secure funding from Congress and schedule a competitive selection process, he says. The TSA recommended the UK system had already installed, which is already installed at London Heathrow Airport. The automated lanes open with 5 stations, allowing 5 passengers to divest metallic clothing and equipment before ushering themselves and carry-on bags through a security scanner. Each of the carry-on luggage bins is stamped with a radio frequency identification, or RFID tag, so the airline customers and the airlines and customers don't have to wait to push the bag through their scanner themselves. On the other side of the scanner, there are numerous stations where the passengers wait to pick up their bags, avoiding bottlenecks at the end of the scanners. That's rather interesting. I've seen similar. Yeah, I've seen these at Heathrow actually. These scanners like this and the lanes that they've got in place. There's not enough, but they're a good idea, I think, with the security and stuff at the airports being as it is at the moment.
Yeah. It's interesting that in the United States that effectively airport security or transportation security is open to anybody to take up the contract, really. So it's an interesting move that the airlines are now doing
more
their own
privatisation.
security.
Yes, I don't know if I like the idea of that. Jennifer's just said automated security lanes, like the automated car wash, very similar.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's got to be better than the automated passport control, the chip reading ones at the airports, because they
the one that requires a person to show you how to work it and help it work, you mean?
Exactly.
So they just took away the kiosk and just used the person to do the passport check.
Without their little box to sit in.
The same ones, Al, that you lay your passport on the little scanner and then you lay it on there again and then again and it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Well, I must admit, I did have some fun recently in the United States. The United States immigration system with their automated setup is actually quite good, unless you're short. And the way it works is that they have a camera that takes your photo, and the camera moves up and down to adjust itself to your height, except if you're below about the height of 4'5". Now, I'm not, but my 5-year-old son is.
Right, yeah.
And the officials there were reasonably insistent that he should go through this automated process. So having had the camera bounce up and down and take photos of the wallpaper and so forth and say, "Is this you?"
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, that's not me. So in the end, I tried him on my shoulders, and then he was too tall.
Right.
So we stood him on my wheelie bag. So
as you do, yes.
And then someone came over and went, "Sir, that's dangerous."
Oh dear,
so
yeah.
Okay, well, then you need to make your machine go up and down a bit more.
Yes, make it move a bit. Oh dear, honestly. Well, it's just
anyway, we
like-
did manage to get his photo taken.
Thank
with,
goodness for that.
and it was fine. And the actual system works really well. It's just that the technology hasn't been designed for children, short people, or giants.
and they haven't thought of that. That's the trouble, isn't it? It's
Yes.
somebody forgot that there might be a 5-year-old, who needs to also have their photograph taken.
Yeah, no, in my limited experience, 5-year-olds aren't that tall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right. Okay. It is time to move on. We're going to listen now to. We alluded to it earlier. We've got a lovely segment from the legend that is Pilot Pip, and so brace yourselves, everyone. It's time to talk about turbulence.
Plane safety from the flight deck with Pilot Pip.
Hi everyone out there in podcast land, it's Pip here with another Safety from the Flight Deck segment. And in this one we're talking about turbulence and how to avoid it, how you can detect it and how you avoid it. And very broadly speaking, there are two types of turbulence. We could have clear air turbulence and turbulence associated with convective activity, storms, clouds, that kind of thing. And only one of them we can detect or infer with the use of weather radar. And that's turbulence associated with storm activity, with clouds. Now, I won't go into too much detail, but the basic principle of a weather radar is you're picking up reflections, radar reflections from water droplets. The aircraft radar sends out a radio beam and it gets reflected back off water droplets or snow or hail, that sort of thing, and gets detected on the radar receiver. Now, some precipitation reflects better than others, so wet rain reflects very well, whereas dry snow, for instance, doesn't quite reflect or paint quite as efficiently. But any areas of precipitation that are painted by the radar, then you could expect some turbulence associated with that. Slightly more clever radars do have a turbulence detection mode, and it works on Doppler shift of the return. And again, from that you can predict the presence of turbulence. And also, we can just use the good old Mark 1 eyeball. We can look out the window and we can see any big clouds or storm cells, and we avoid those because we know there could be some potentially pretty heavy turbulence associated with them. There's very strong up and down drafts around storm cells, and that's essentially what turbulence is. It's movement of wind changing direction of the air currents. But what we can't predict is clear air turbulence. That's probably the more common sort of turbulence that you encounter. We do our best when we're flying around to avoid turbulence associated with clouds, and it's fairly easy to do because we can see them, we can manoeuvre around them or over them. Clear air turbulence, however, is another matter because, as the name suggests, you can't see it and it's not associated with any moisture, so weather radar cannot detect it. However, that's not to say that we don't have some clues that might suggest or might give us a hint as to where along our routes we might encounter clear air turbulence. Now, there are some areas where you always find it. So, for instance, perhaps over mountain ranges, over the Alps in Europe, it's a pretty good bet that you'll encounter at some level or at some altitude bands some clear air turbulence. You will be also pretty well guaranteed to meet some clear air turbulence if you're flying in the region of the jet streams. The jet streams are the high velocity bands of air that circle the globe, usually going west to east. They have a huge impact on the global weather systems. And we like to take advantage of jet streams if we can. If we're flying with them on our back, they can produce some pretty good strong tailwinds which will get us to our destination much quicker. Flying into a jet stream with a headwind is not a great idea because these jet streams are often 100 knots plus, 120 knots, 130 knots, sometimes even more. And once you're in the jet stream, it can be pretty smooth, but on the boundaries where the jet stream is ploughing through the air mass, it can get pretty turbulent. So we get charts, weather charts derived from satellite data, and we can see exactly where the jet streams are. So we know where to expect and where to avoid those certain areas. But oftentimes you'll encounter clear air turbulence completely unexpectedly. It's very unpredictable and you never quite know where it might crop up. And it's pretty common to encounter some turbulence on most flights, I would suggest. And we categorise turbulence in a number of different ways. We say light turbulence, moderate, severe, and also extreme. Now personally, I've never encountered extreme turbulence, and knock on wood, long may that continue. I've probably encountered severe turbulence certainly once, maybe bordering on twice. And moderate turbulence is not too infrequent, and then light turbulence pretty well every flight. As I say, you tend to come across some. And while we can't see it or detect it with radar, the one tool we do have for predicting or knowing where to expect turbulence is from pilot reports. It's pretty common to give and to ask for turbulence reports at certain levels along your route. So aircraft that have been along the same track, for instance, 10 minutes before you, may well be able to provide you with a report on flying conditions. And then you can make a judgment from there whether you want to deviate or do something else to your flight to avoid that. Now, for me personally, light turbulence, I wouldn't worry too much about. I mean, passenger comfort is certainly at the forefront of our mind. So we like to avoid the turbulence if we can, but light turbulence, it can be pretty short-lived. And really, it's no great shakes for the passenger comfort. Just that very gentle light turbulence isn't going to disturb anyone too much. But if it starts to become pretty persistent, or if it starts to increase in intensity, then the best thing you can do, or the easiest thing you can do to try and get out of that area of turbulence, is simply to change levels, either climb or descend. Just even a few thousand feet often is enough just to get you out of that area of turbulence. So when we find ourselves in some turbulence, we'll often, if available, ask to climb up to one level above. So if we're at 360, and if the weight and conditions allow, then we'll ask to climb up to level 380, for instance. Or if we can't climb because we're too heavy or it's too warm up there, then perhaps we'll descend down to 340. And that's the usual strategy for avoiding or getting out of turbulence. Simply change level. Now, if you are on some very long range routes, if you're doing long haul flying, then descending down is obviously going to increase your fuel burn. So that might be something you really need to give some consideration to, as to how long you can sustain the increased fuel burn, because at some point you're going to need to climb back up again. So in some situations you might just have to live with the turbulence. You've got to weigh up all the factors and make the best decision you can. And passenger comfort, as I say, is certainly at the forefront of our mind, but also fuel consumption, fuel burn, range and endurance, and all that sort of stuff we need to think about as well. However, and just to finish on a positive note, turbulence really isn't dangerous at all. I know for some people it can be a frightening thing, and it can be a little uncomfortable for passengers, but it certainly doesn't pose a danger. Certainly not the light and moderate, even severe turbulence. Now, that can obviously be quite scary when you do get into that, but the aircraft structures are designed such that turbulence is very, very rarely going to cause them any serious damage. It may not feel like that when you're sat in the back there watching those wings flexing up and down, but there are very, very few, if any, aircraft accidents that have been caused by turbulence, at least up at altitude. Of course, I can't say that turbulence doesn't pose a danger without pointing out the very obvious point that it can pose a danger to those inside the aircraft if, you guessed it, you're not wearing your seatbelt. Now, I'm pretty certain I don't need to tell you, good folks, the benefits of wearing a seatbelt, but it happens that people are sitting down asleep, they're not strapped in, and you encounter a bit of unexpected turbulence and you get thrown around the cabin. And maybe you get a few bumps and bruises and broken legs or worse. So that's why we always say to have your seatbelt just loosely fastened around your waist, even when you're seated. And this is, after all, the safety from the flight deck segment, so I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't remind you of that fact. Anyway, on that positive note, I'll bring this little segment to a close. I'll be back in the next episode with another segment in which we're going to be talking about pilot incapacitation. What happens when the pilot eats the fish and gets ill? Until next time, take care everyone and fly safe.
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Pip. Yeah, thanks very much for that. As always, a fantastic segment. I set him the homework and he's completed his task.
I'm not sure it helps me.
I love it. Oh, it's fantastic.
We're just talking about turbulence, and now I'm even more nervous.
You can't beat a good old bit of turbulence every now and again.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
Have we lost Al?
Is he on?
Hello, Al.
Is he up? Hello.
No, is he there? Is he still? Is this the volume's up? Don't panic.
Oh. Hello, Al.
Broadsword calling Danny Boy.
There we go.
Danny Boy.
There he is. Yes, he's back. Yes.
I've muted myself. I needed to attend to some domestic matters, and I didn't want to share it with the world.
Well, you're no fun, honestly. Absolutely.
Well, it's bad enough Pip broadcasting from the toilet, let alone actually me,
you following suit,
as it were. No, I was just going to say, excellent segment by Pip there. Really well covered as usual, and I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend, but I know he puts a lot of effort into providing the detail for your segments and so forth. I would imagine that just about everybody in the chat room knows that at the pointy end, we always have our lap straps on. So I don't really see any reason as to why passengers, wouldn't want to do the same. What do you guys feel about the prospects of it being a legal requirement
mandatory,
to have your seatbelt on?
I'm more than happy because personally, I've said this before on the show, Al. I've always got my seatbelt on all the time, even when I'm sitting watching a film or something. So you drive around in your car, Carlos. You got your seatbelt on, yeah?
Yeah, true.
Okay, Matt, on your coach, seatbelts are fitted.
Yes, very much so.
I think if I remember rightly, that they should be worn by law. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Throughout the entire duration of the journey, the only time there is this grey area because some do have toilets on. And there is this grey area where you're allowed to sort of take it. I suppose the same in the air, isn't it? You can take it off to go and use the facilities, but you're supposed to put it back on.
Yeah, well, we don't really want a little pipe that comes out of the seat in front or anything, do we? Now, do they still have hostess service on sort of coaches in the UK?
It depends. Yes, they do. They do. Not for the sort of stuff that we do, but I know a lot of the European things. Well, you see, you don't tend to have a person anymore. You do tend to have just like a coffee machine that they're able to go and sort of utilise.
Right.
So they are allowed to sort of get their own teas and coffees, essentially.
Okay. So, it's kind of a little bit of almost an anomaly that in the aviation world that we haven't made it a legal requirement to have your seatbelt
agreed.
Fastened when sat down. And whether people then choose to do it or not, well, that becomes a personal decision.
Yes.
But it certainly would remove any issues from the airline having to deal with it.
Agreed.
If the seatbelt sign is on, then it's on, and if you choose to wander around, then you do so.
You do so at your own risk. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're certainly say the vehicle that I normally drive doesn't have a toilet on it, and so I, as a result of that, expect all of my passengers to wear their seat belt during the whole time. And
so just as a curiosity, do you make an announcement to your passengers that it's required?
Well, now this is where I have to be a bit careful because I'm not quite sure what the official line is. If I'm honest,
because I travel on coaches from time to time as a course for work. If we're transporting an entire crew from one part of the country to another, we usually go on a coach. And the drivers there certainly haven't. I can't remember actually seeing any signs saying
the general rule of thumb is that you usually find that there's a sign at the front of the vehicle and at the rear of the vehicle, and then if you look on the window, you'll usually have a round disc which has the sort of seatbelt symbol on it. That is usually deemed that you have made it obvious to your passengers that seatbelts are required. A bit like in the same way that you have your seatbelt light, if you're sitting in an aircraft. You aren't necessarily... I think that I don't know what the official line is. We don't tend to, because if we forget to do it on one trip, you can then get sort of done for it, if you see what I mean. It's one of those...
Absolutely. I just think that we are not a million miles away from having it as a legal requirement in aviation, and I can see it solving a lot, of problems. Really,
sounds like a very good idea.
You can only help people so much, but you can take the horse to water ultimately.
Yeah, indeed.
So we have got a military segment to bring you next.
Oh yeah, the show. I remember now.
The show,
sorry.
Yeah. We have got a military segment to bring you next with just a couple of stories, notable stories from this week, and also we have got as well a segment from the main man, that is Micah, who has just actually popped up in the chat room. So welcome, Micah.
Well done, Micah.
As if by magic.
As if by magic.
Indeed,
so if we're all ready, we're going to do some military news.
Yes. Okay. Let's go.
So the first story on the military news segment for this week is on the Flight Global site, and it's regarding the Harrier. And there's a few pictures as well we'll put up in a moment as well. Okay. But India are retiring the Sea Harrier jump jets.
Oh, no.
So the Indian Navy has formally decommissioned its British Aerospace Sea Harrier FRS-51 fighters at a formal ceremony at INS Hansa in Dabolim in Goa. The phasing out.
I know it well.
Oh, the phasing out of the Sea Harrier with Indian Naval Air Squadron 300 and the White Tigers coincided with the induction of the RSK MiG-29K carrier-borne strike aircraft into the squadron. The type's final appearance in the Indian skies saw 2 Sea Harriers perform a flying display with 2 MiG-29Ks. That included flying in formation at high speed they were doing passes actually with the MiG-29, and the Sea Harrier's trademark vertical takeoff and landing. The Sea Harrier served for 33 years in the Indian Navy, flying from the aircraft carrier the INS Vikrant and the INS Virat in the Fleet Air Defence role. The MiG-29Ks are embarked on the INS Vikramagaditya, formerly the Admiral Gorshkov, with the INS Virat scheduled to be decommissioned this year. The ageing Sea Harriers were getting increasingly hard to maintain and flew for the last time from the INS Virat on the 6th of March. Despite their age, the Sea Harrier afforded a unique capability as a fleet air defence fighter in the Indian subcontinent after they were modernised as part of the limited upgrade Sea Harrier effort to carry Israeli Derby BVR missiles. Approximately 11 of the aircraft remained at the time of decommissioning, including two twin-seat Sea Harrier trainers. The Sea Harrier's fleet had a high attrition rate, with approximately half lost in accidents since the type was inducted. With the retirement of the Sea Harrier and induction of the MiG-29K into the INAS 300, the Indian Navy has 2 operational squadrons of the Russian carrier-borne aircraft, which has been modified to suit a number of specific requirements of the Navy. The Indian Navy has placed orders for 16 MiG-29Ks in 2004 and 29 in 2010. It has already taken delivery of an estimated 40 examples. India's first MiG-29K squadron, INAS 303, was stood up in 2013. The Indian Navy decided to acquire the Sea Harrier FRS Mark 51 in 1979, placing orders for 6 single-seat fighters and 2 T Mark 60 trainers. The type replaced the Seahawk, which was phased out in 1978. The arrival of the VSTOL capability was heralded in India when the first 3 Sea Harriers landed at Dabolim in the 16th of October 1983. The Indian Navy operated its FRS Mark 51 aircraft for a full decade after the Royal Navy retired the type in 2006. And Matt's got a picture there. There we go.
You're going to make me do something, are you?
Oh, I know. There we go.
So what's this? What's this here?
There we go. There's the wonderful Harrier. Look at that.
Yes,
look.
the Harrier, of course.
Why do we ever get rid of those, honestly?
Yes,
fantastic.
Therein lies the eternal question, really. Okay, and then on to the next one.
And we'll put another picture there. There's a couple of
some great pictures, aren't
There's
they?
some lovely pictures there. Look
They
at
are.
that.
You've got to love the Harrier. As you say, I know. Didn't somebody take ours on?
Yeah, I think it was the Spanish Air Force. Took some of these on.
They are some great pictures, aren't they?
There's the Harrier next door to the MiG-29 there. That's MiG-29K.
Look at that. Excellent. Okay.
It's a shame. It's one of those aircraft that I do miss, especially from the air shows.
Oh yeah,
because we've been lucky enough in the past to see these at one of our local air shows.
Yes.
Although it did ditch into the
in
North Sea,
yes,
but we saw it at the air show, and also I've seen one of these as well at Farnborough as well a few years back.
Yeah, the main man, Micah, he's just said, so does this leave the USA as the only country still using Harriers? I think we have retired them. I think we retired them very shortly after that incident, didn't we? I don't know quite what happened.
Yeah, I think we retired quite a few of them into the sea, didn't we?
Yeah, literally, yeah, absolutely. So it's, but it's. I mean, I used to love it at air shows because I mean, is there one that hovers? Is there an equivalent now which sort of hovers in the air?
Well, you've got the F. Oh, blimey.
I mean, other than a helicopter, I don't mean one of those. I mean, something that can sort of hold its airspeed.
The F. Oh, what is it? Al, that's the F-35, isn't it? Which has got the vertical takeoff capability, I think.
You are asking entirely
the wrong person.
Okay,
Someone in the
yeah,
chat
fair
room will know that one.
I've been
the
flying with a few
F-35
ex-military guys recently, and there's been a few military aircraft dotted around the Canaries.
Yeah.
And we've had lengthy chats about how to tell one apart from the other.
Okay.
And if they're grey, they're military. And,
Right.
That's the extent of my knowledge.
Splendid.
To be honest.
Okay.
The only thing I was thinking of is that
Micah's just said the 35, by the way.
they can hover.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, you see, but I don't know if that class comes under the same category because that's kind of a helicopter. I think I do
It's
struggle.
a thing.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing thing, but it is nevertheless a thing.
The Spanish Navy do have 16
Harriers,
of the Harrier 2s.
Yeah. And the Mainman Micah has said the F-35. In the chat room, so that's good. Which I was trying to. I kept
having a cup of
interrupting.
tea here.
Okay, right.
My new mug.
Yeah, all right. Yes. He says showing a visual show on record. Yeah, great.
Shameless promotion.
Yeah, absolutely. What they're already watching. Why? Stop it. Okay. Anyway, on to the next story. Before he loses the plot completely. RAF mod. So it's the RAF website, and the headline is RAF Typhoons intercept Russian aircraft near the Baltics. Here we go again. So the Royal Air Force Typhoon fighter jets have carried out their first intercept of Russian aircraft in this round of NATO's Baltic air policing mission. The jets, which deployed to the region less than 3 weeks ago, were scrambled from Amari Air Base in Estonia to intercept 3 Russian aircraft approaching the Baltic states. I have to say, this wasn't mentioned in the main news.
Oh, you'd be surprised where I get these stories.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's because it did. The American one made big news, didn't it? When they came and sort of flirted around the I presume it was a carrier or something like that.
I think the media have got grasp for the fact that this is not an uncommon event now. And,
right. Okay. They finally realised.
The tabloids no longer do the story of man steps on dog poo.
Right.
So so they've kind of well, this happens every week then, doesn't it?
Yes. So it's suddenly it's less interesting. Yes. Yeah. No, this is true. So anyway, the Defence Secretary Michael Fallon then said that this is another example of just how important the UK's contribution to the Baltic air policing mission is. We were able to instantly respond to this act of Russian aggression, demonstration of our commitment to NATO's collective defence. The 4 RAF Typhoons and pilots from 2 Army Air Cooperation Squadron from Royal Air Force Lossiemouth were deployed in April to support the BAP mission.
BAPs need support.
Well, indeed, absolutely. Yes, that I believe is what she said. Yeah, an enduring defensive NATO effort that sees alliance members without their own air policing assets, assisted by others in 4 monthly cycles. This rotation, which is the 3rd consecutive year the UK has committed to BAP. Oh no, we'll see UK jets.
You really didn't edit these stories?
No, we didn't. No, I didn't. No, absolutely. It was all a bit last moment. Anyway, everyone, you get the gist. Essentially, BAPs are flying through the air. No, it's oh dear, family show. Yes, it's the Russians up to their old tricks again, basically, isn't it? As you say, and it's I don't know. I don't know what I said this before. I don't know what they're up to. Are they just trying it on?
Yeah, I think just
well, without divulging any top secrets, I've been flying with a few ex-Tornado guys and an ex-Typhoon guy over the last few weeks, and they describe this as just normal sport. It's cat and mouse. It's the Air Force guys, and obviously in the case of this particular one, it's a sort of secondment of Army guys. They view this as sort of part and parcel of the job. It's a little bit of excitement, and they get to practice their sort of intercept skills, etc., etc. And I think that we have now concluded that this has gone on for as long as anybody can remember.
Right. Yeah,
and it's just now that it's become much more common knowledge just because we have global media.
Right. Yeah. So it's been possible. But we're not doing the same, surely. I mean, we're not sort of out there busy flirting with other countries' borders and therefore being chased away by foreign forces, are we?
Well, we did have a Navy guy recently kicked out, didn't he? Because we decided that we'd test Iranian waters a little bit.
Right.
We had some sailors that were sort of captured basically by the Iranians because we were in their territorial waters. Right. So I wouldn't say that we're particularly
innocent.
Innocent,
Yeah,
yes. And of course, we're not really likely to report in our media when we've gone and had a little bit of probing elsewhere.
Well, no, that's true. That is, of course, true. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. I don't know. I was just sort of surprised.
Well, it keeps our boys on their toes.
That's it.
I mean, let's be
Keeps
fair. I
everyone
mean, the Russians do keep flying in and out of neutral airspace all the time, and it keeps our guys,
Yeah, it's good practice.
It's good practice. It is, yeah.
As long as it happens Monday to Friday 9 to 5 to fit in with our requirements.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that there's an appropriate time for breaks, of course.
Exactly.
Tea and coffee, for example. Yes. Anyway,
So-
yes.
So, our main man Micah has put in the chat room that he said it is the F-35B that does vertical takeoff and landings for the US Marines, and the C model is for the Navy with a tail hook and larger wings beefed up for landing gear. So thank you for that, Micah. And on that Micah note,
Yes, indeed.
we Micah has very kindly sent us in a little segment for this show, which we're going to play to you in a moment. And we have to say a massive thanks to Micah.
Yeah.
Those of you who listen to the Airplane Geeks will have heard Micah before, and obviously APG as well. You would have heard Micah on there sending in bits and pieces. And he's a fantastic teller of fantastic stories. And we absolutely, cannot wait.
He's a legend.
We can't wait to see to meet Micah.
Yeah,
hopefully at Farnborough this year as well. So that'll be good. So if you're ready, we are going to play that segment for you right now.
Hello, Matt and Carlos, Plain Talking UK listeners. This is Micah, your main man, coming to you from Portland, Maine. And recently, on Plain Talking UK, you asked about what our favorite airline was. Well, I have a few favorite airlines, some of which don't even exist anymore, and one of which I never even flew. But I thought I'd go over a few of them for you here, with a little audio feedback. I guess my favorite airline has to be the Acme Group. Now, the Acme Group obviously includes Acme, Acme Red, Acme South, and I believe, soon to be, Acme Globe, but we'll find out more about that later. It's definitely my favorite, but one I haven't ever flown. Another favorite, and one that I have flown, is actually JetBlue. They used to be called a low-cost carrier, and they came out in competition with Southwest, when Southwest here in the U.S. was also a low-cost carrier. Neither one would be considered low-cost any longer, but they are smaller, primarily domestic carriers that offer service throughout the USA. JetBlue I like in particular because they offer great seat pitch, 32 to 33 inches in economy. They don't always offer first class, but on their transcontinental routes they do have a product called Mint that I've never flown. And they also have an even more seat room group that offers 39 inches of seat pitch. The seats are all 18.5 inches wide. Very, very comfortable. JetBlue was also one of the very first domestic carriers, and certainly the first, quote, low-cost, unquote, carrier to offer in-flight entertainment with a wonderful array of TV in the back of the seat and movies, as well as XM satellite radio. They never used to charge for bags. They started charging for them now, but it's a fair fee, and while I don't like paying for it, I generally do because I do have to check a bag when I'm flying a long distance. Although I'm going to try to avoid that when I come to Farnborough because it's only for a few days. Now, being that you asked for a favorite airline, there are two airlines, one of which doesn't exist any longer, the other of which I've never flown, which are really my favorites. And I thought this might be a good time, based on that, to retell a story that originally appeared on the Airplane Geeks podcast, episode 311, back in August of 2014. And that story is titled, Favorite Flights I Never Flew. The mid to late 1980s were the heyday of frequent flyer programs. Since deregulation, the advent of low-cost airlines a la People Express and Southwest, the mainline carriers were searching for means to maintain their customer base, or as some people said, add a stranglehold on the industry. Frequent flyer programs started with American Airlines and quickly spread to all others. By coincidence, this was also the time, while living in Pueblo, Colorado, that I was doing a good deal of commercial flying. Now, Pueblo was only served by Rocky Mountain Airlines, Continental Express, and when I started flying from there, that was fine by me. There were 3 or 4 flights daily back and forth to Denver, the hub of Continental Airlines Rocky Mountain Express, and I always loved climbing on board the de Havilland -7s or -6 Twin Otters. Now later, America West made a daily stop on a 737 flight from Phoenix to Colorado Springs and back. It always seemed like it would have been strange to fly the less than 50-mile leg of Pueblo to Colorado Springs, but I never had that opportunity. I joined the Continental One Pass program early on and was soon an elite platinum member. What a wonderful way to fly. In those days, most flights were way below capacity, which meant I was almost always bumped up to first class. And although first-class amenities weren't even near what business class is today, it was still pretty spectacular compared to coach. All of the gate agents in Pueblo and some in Denver knew me by name, and I was treated like a king. Now, many people remember the baggage disaster that took place when the new Denver airport opened, but really, it wasn't very different from the old days back at Stapleton. The Continental Express concourse was located at the other end of the airport from Continental's mainline terminal, and although it seemed my bags always made it outbound with me, they generally never accompanied me home. But the service was still pretty spectacular. When I would arrive home in Pueblo, the gate agent, having already seen my name on the flight manifest and recognizing me as a very frequent flyer, would pull me aside, tell me my bags didn't make it, and that they would be delivered right after the next flight was turned around. Who could ask for more? I kept flying and kept my points banked. At that time, status with frequent flyer programs was based on points accumulated, not annual miles flown. I was in great shape as a Platinum One Pass member. By 1990, I could see that frequent flyer programs were changing along with the airline business. People Express had disappeared, as had the original Frontier. Eastern Airlines and Pan Am were in trouble. TWA and America West were not far behind. Frequent flyer programs were changing, and not for the better. I had moved to Maine by then, and also found that while wealthy with points, I was not very liquid in cash. If points were stocks, it was time to sell. So I did, both literally and figuratively. After reserving a few points for something in particular I had in mind, I sold off the remaining points for cash through some specialty travel agents. I must say I did very well. Then I went ahead and used the reserve points for a special flight. My parents had been talking about another trip to Paris for some time. They had been there together before, and my father had been there on his own many times during World War II. He even studied at the University of Paris post-war. Their 35th wedding anniversary was coming up, and it was time to get them back to Paris. Still being within the golden years of frequent flyer programs, as a special anniversary present, I was able to use my points to get them to Paris, round trip in first class. It was not a flight for me to fly, but nonetheless, a memorable one that was worth every last point used for it. 17 years later, in 2007, my mom, Harriet, was talking about another trip to Europe. She and my father had traveled to many places since the Paris trip I managed to scrounge together for them. We had even taken a trip to London together. That was a special trip. My dad and I spent a great day together, part of which included sitting on the banks of the Thames and drinking tea, and then a trip to the Imperial War Museum. By this time, however, in 2007, my dad's health, while not terrible, did not allow for him to be as mobile as he once was. He spent most of this trip on his own in our hotel. The trip was a return to London for me, and then on by train for my first time in Paris. While in London, my mother and I went to see the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. Although I'd seen it before, it's a wonderful ceremony and worth seeing again, and plus, it was on the tour this time. We were standing in front of the palace gate. I was showing my mom, Harriet, some of the landmarks so she could get her bearings and know where the guard would be marching in from. It was then that this beautiful young woman that was standing nearby, but not part of our tour, asked me where I learned so much about the area and the ceremony. I told her that I'd been to London before and that I loved the city. We struck up a conversation, and it turned out she was a flight attendant for Singapore Airlines. My God, I was talking to a Singapore girl. She was on her first flight since going through her training and spending her first layover in London, and let me say, she was a knockout. Now look, I love my mom and still do, and I was as dedicated a son to her as any son could be, but I was talking to a Singapore girl. And not just any Singapore girl, but a Singapore girl that was talking to me because she wanted to, not because I was a passenger. A Singapore girl that asked me where I was staying in London. A Singapore girl that was telling me that my hotel was near where she was staying. A Singapore girl that wanted to know if I was doing anything later that evening. It was a dream come true. As with all flights, however, timing is everything. I explained to her how I was with my parents, having taken them here to London, and that we would soon be off to Paris. How we had tickets that night to the theater. I asked her when she returned to Singapore, if she might have a turnaround in Paris, New York, any place in the USA. Needless to say, I never saw or heard from her again. And that, my friends, and fellow airplane geeks and Plane Talking UK podcast fans, is the story behind the 2 best flights in my life that I never flew. For Plane Talking UK, this is your main man, Micah.
Fuzzy inside.
I know.
What a truly awesome piece of material to have on your show, guys.
Oh, isn't he brilliant? Isn't he brilliant? Oh, wow.
Thanks ever so much,
May
Micah.
that be one of many, many more.
Yeah.
I have to be brutally honest, and I know I'm going to get told off for this, but that is the first time that I've heard the main man in a story mode, and that is a real joke. As unfortunately, I'd love to listen to the APG and that, but the time thing for me, given I have to get up so early, is really difficult. But that oh wow,
I know.
Many
I think
more of
we
those
can
stories,
we all
please.
agree that
Absolutely.
definitely, Micah, you definitely need to spend more time and send us some more segments. Bless him,
because he's got lots of time.
He's got
absolutely.
But no, thanks ever so much for that, Micah.
Yeah,
Micah's a fantastic storyteller, and he just has the most wondrous of voices. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting him at Farnborough.
Can't wait.
I've had a little idea, and I've not mentioned this to Micah, and I don't even know if legally it's possible. But there's a fantastic aviation book written by a guy called Ernest Gann called Fate is the Hunter.
Right.
And it's not available as an audio book.
Oh, no
and I think Micah would read that book phenomenally as an audio book.
Yeah, well, let's make it happen.
I think.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
If I was going to download and listen to audiobooks, which I have done in the past, not many, but I have done in the past, Micah would make the best audiobook teller ever.
It's a bit like Stephen Fry in the world of Matt. It's like I can listen to any book. I mean, Stephen Fry could read the phone book, and I could listen to it for hours. Do you know what I mean? And Mike has got one of those sort of similar voices. He could literally read anything, and it would just be absolutely brilliant. No, so seriously, thanks very much for that.
Yeah.
And
looking forward to meeting you in July, Micah.
Absolutely.
So we have had this week. We've had an email actually sent to us from someone who works at one of the air shows we have decided we're going to go to.
We are going to do our very best which
to
we're
visit.
very excited at. So anyway, the email goes as follows. Is a lovely chap by the name of Ollie Pallett who sent us this message, and the subject was Cold War Jet Day at Bruntingthorpe and VC-10s. Afternoon, chaps. My name is Ollie, and I'm part of a team that looks after an ex-RAF VC-10 Zulu Delta 241 at Bruntingthorpe. I was wondering if you could give us a little mention on your great podcast regarding the upcoming War Jets Fast Taxi Day at Bruntingthorpe on the 29th of May. There are many hard-working groups that look after a variety of retired military planes as both live runners and static airframes, which include the VC-10, Lightnings, is it Buccaneers?
Yeah.
Hunters, Victors, etc. Hunter Victors, sorry, etc. It's a great show, and the level of access given to most of the planes is something that is generally unseen at normal air shows. Thanks for taking the time to read this one. Regards, Ollie. So no, seriously, and we are serious, Ollie. We're going to do our very, very best. As long as nothing happens as regards to my work front, frame, because that's the only trouble with being a coach driver. You never quite know when you're going to be where. But we're going to try very hard and come and see you on the 29th, because it's a Sunday, isn't it? So we're going to try really hard.
So the Cold War Jets Open Day. So as Matt said, it's Sunday the 29th of May this year, and also they've got one on Sunday the 28th of August as well.
Cool.
These are both Sundays. The days are open to the public. The gates open typically at 9 a.m. With the first taxi run at 11 a.m. Admittance is £20 for adults, £15 for OAPs. And disabled, with accompanied children under 16 years of age, all free of charge.
So yes, if you get the chance to go to that is Sunday the 29th of May, and that's the Cold War Jets Day at Bruntingthorpe.
And more to the point, after another email that Ollie sent us back later on that day.
Yes. Yes, you got a little excited.
I did get rather excited because, for those of you who may or may not know, Bruntingthorpe is the home of the last 6 remaining Lockheed L-1011 TriStars, ex-Royal Air Force, which are currently stored there. So I think there's a very good chance that we will possibly be definitely making that show, Matt.
Right, okay. Yeah, okie doke.
So
we're going to try very hard. So if you are there, then
what I'll do is I'll send you some Airbus stickers so you can put them over the TriStar logo when you're there. Is that okay?
I'll just ask my van, Nat.
Right.
I've got some stickers for your van for Farnborough. Don't worry about that.
Oh dear. He's got a funny colour. Oh dear. So yeah, no, seriously, Ollie, thanks for that email. Yeah. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do that by the usual means. You've got the website, of course, www.planetalkinguk.com. There's a contact button on there to write to us, or you can write to us directly. That is podcast@planetalkinguk.com, facebook.com/PTUK. And if you want to, don't forget, you can get in touch with the show now and give us a ring. If you haven't got the ability to send us voice feedback, then why not leave us a message on our wonderful answer phone? And hey,
we haven't had anyone.
We haven't had anyone send it to us yet.
Let's have the first ever voice feedback via our new voice
Absolutely.
feedback
So the
line.
telephone number here, it's a Cambridge number, but don't let that confuse you. That's to do with the system, because it's a digital system that we use, and it's only available from Cambridge numbers at the moment. So it is
big town.
Indeed. Stop it. So it is 01223 911 355. So if you're phoning outside of the UK and you have a tariff where you can phone UK numbers where it doesn't cost you, which I know a lot of American people do, it is +44 1223 911 355. So it's 01223 911 355. To get in touch with us via Twitter, it is @PlaneTalkingUK. As I say, facebook.com/PlaneTalkingUK. All our shows are available now, all the video content. If you haven't had the chance to watch the show being either done live or watched afterwards, it is youtube.com/PlaneTalkingUK.
Yeah, don't forget, for those of you listening to the audio podcast available on iTunes and very many other podcast sites as well. Don't forget, we do this live show each week.
We're on TuneIn now, by the way.
We're on TuneIn Radio.
And Stitcher, and also, as of this week, we are now also on SoundCloud.
Oh, and SoundCloud as well. Yeah, we're on SoundCloud now as well. Don't forget, we do the live show each week on YouTube. The links are on our Facebook page and Twitter page.
Very soon we'll also be available from Spotify.
On Spotify? Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
We're
working
everywhere.
on that one, yeah. So we really are. You will not be able to get away from us, essentially. That's the plan.
No, that's good.
I'll have to up my fee then.
Yeah, absolutely.
The checks in the checks in the post, Al.
Yeah, absolutely.
Expect it at Christmas, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct. Yes, no, I'll tell you what. We'll buy you a drink at Farnborough. How does that sound?
A drink.
Yes, yeah.
A drink.
Yeah, I know, but I'm a humble coach driver. Do you know how much an hour I get?
I'll tell you what, I'll do you a deal, okay? Because obviously, in the sort of standard of hotel that we're staying in, drinks can be very, very expensive.
Okay.
How about if you foot my food bill? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think we can probably...
No, man.
Oh, right.
No, that's not good.
Okay.
No.
Is it not?
No.
Oh, okay. No. Have I missed something?
Oh, dear.
Okay.
I'll take that as an agreement. We'll move on then.
Oh, no.
Next story.
What have I done? Okay, yeah.
Cue. Music.
Okay, so by the sound of it, we need help from Patreon, from our Patreon subscribers.
Yes.
So if anyone is able to... if everybody wants to subscribe to the show, it is patreon.com/planetalkinguk. UK. We've got lots of great subscribers in there now already, but that is how you can help us keep the show on the air. Essentially, we use it to pay for things like basically our server fees, website hosting, and
feeding Al.
And feeding Al. It seems now, yes, absolutely. Which I didn't realise was going to be given the racing snake figure that he's blessed with was going to be such an expensive experience. But never mind.
So for anyone who's listening, that would be awesome. Just if you go on our website, the Patreon links on there. We really do appreciate the donations, the kind donations from the current patrons and anyone else who wants to join the Patreon team. And like we said, it is covering our airshow visits this year and sort of accommodation, parts of our accommodation costs and stuff for the air shows this year, which we've got quite a few lined up ready. Yes. So that's good.
So yes, if you can spare even $1, then we would really appreciate you topping up our Earl Grey fund. Anyway, enough of this drivel. It is time to wrap up the show, I'm afraid. Captain Al, what can I say? You are a legend, as always. Thank you so much for your time.
All hail the Royal Jet King.
Indeed, absolutely.
Thank you for the advance notice that you
gave. Yes. Well, it's the element of surprise is often the way forward, I think, with any kind of broadcast.
Absolutely. No. As usual, a pleasure to take part. I was glad that I was able to wedge myself into the corner of the room to keep the signal going.
But it's been very good.
It has been very, very. It's been sturdy as anything. I'm very impressed. And no fire alarms, which is another added bonus. So he hasn't had to sort of jump out of a window.
Before we go, Al, any nice sunny destinations lined up for this week? Do you know?
Well, actually, let me just run through the calendar here.
So he has a roster and everything, very posh.
Yes, Monday afternoon, I'm off to Larnaca on the island of Cyprus.
Oh, I see. How the other half live? Yes.
Tuesday, it's Faro in the Algarve in Portugal.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wednesday, it is Gibraltar in Gibraltar.
Lovely.
Thursday, it's Arrecife on the island of Lanzarote in the Canaries.
Oh, now I'm jealous. I love Lanzarote.
Friday, it is Larnaca in Cyprus.
Just as you do. Yeah. Oh dear. It sounds like a busy week, to be fair.
Then Saturday and Sunday, Al rests.
Al rests.
How nice.
Gets a day off.
Excellent. He gets a lie down. Yes.
And then Monday and Tuesday, Al jumps into a Cessna 152 to do some flying around the UK.
Yay!
Oh, cool. Where are you going in the UK?
I am going to go with my father. And I've got to try and get a few hours in before my single-engine piston rating expires.
Okay, right.
So I'm going to go up to Scotland and then over to Northern Ireland.
Oh, wow.
And then down to Southern Ireland and then back.
Oh. Nowhere near Beccles, then. That's a shame.
You could have come to us.
No, Beccles is on the agenda for sometime this year.
Fantastic.
Let us know when you do.
I did actually fly over Beccles in the big jet a couple of days ago.
Did you?
Actually, so
you should have given us a wave.
Oh yeah, he probably was.
Well, I did. Yes.
Yeah.
I performed some bodily functions as I passed over.
Oh, you see, there's no need for that. I'll tell you what. Seriously, you come over here. There's a fantastic restaurant that we will take you to. So,
we're going to spoil you.
We will spoil you with one of the best meals I think you've ever had.
Yeah, definitely.
From the lovely Chan, bless her. So yes. Anyway.
No, it's definitely on my agenda. One of the reasons for getting myself back into currency on the little aeroplane. Because I don't own my own anymore. That's long gone, unfortunately. But it's just through lack of use. And aeroplanes are like any other machine. If you don't use them often, then they become
expensive.
An expensive entity.
Yeah.
So I'm getting myself back up to speed on that, and then I shall be popping over because I've had a look on Google Maps and TomTom. And quite frankly, it's a heck of a long drive from anywhere else in the UK to where you guys live.
Yes. I think that's fair comment.
Very true.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. It's Mike is actually saying it sounds like a busman's holiday. Al, at least that's what they call it over here. He's saying. No, we call it that here. Actually, a busman's holiday.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually,
I look forward to doing my little aeroplane flying because one of the things that I can do then is just basically enjoy the scenery, turn the radio off wherever necessary
Yes.
or wherever possible, speak to as few people as I need to, and just do some flying.
Enjoy flying. Yeah, I mean that must be one thing when you. I mean, because I love driving. I genuinely love driving, and a lot of people say to me like, but surely if you drive for a living, does the novelty wear off a bit? And it must be a bit like that with sort of flight, being a pilot as well.
There is that.
It always sounds so glamorous, doesn't it?
It's very different. My
oh no, he's fallen off. Oh no, he's fallen off air. Oh dear. Oh no, that is terrible. Oh dear.
Oh no.
That was it. It was all going so well right at the very end. Anyway, we are well over time, so we need to wrap up. So it is time to bring the show to a close. Thank you very much to everyone who has been listening.
We'll say thank you to Al.
We will indeed, yeah. Thank you very much,
Thank you very much, Al.
Such
his
a shame
Wi-Fi just died
I think it's done well. It's lasted over he's probably over his limit. I mean, he's gone over 2 hours of...
His room bill is now £4,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's hope it was in complimentary Wi-Fi. So anyway, from all of us here on episode 112, thank you very much to everyone who has joined us. We will see you all very soon. It's next Friday.
I'll tell you what, Matt.
What's that?
It's been a long one.
Has it?
Wow, so I had to drop that one in.
That was worth it, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, and on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to end. So from all of us here in the studio, we'll go to the wide shot. From all of us here in the studio, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. It's Friday. At 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
From all of us here in the studio, it is goodbye. Bye.